Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. As you can see, today I want us to dive and navigate through the process of blood transfusion. Now class, we need to define what a blood transfusion is. We need to know the name of the person who is given the blood and the other person who is receiving the blood. And again, what do we check in the recipient's blood as well in the donor's blood? Then we can know where we can transfuse blood, and what else do we check? The status, the weight, and also the age limit for the person to be able to donate blood. And about if time will allow us, I will also do a bit of the research antigen, that is antigen type D. Now class, as you can see that we say blood transfusion is the process by which blood is transferred from the donor into the circulatory system of the recipient. You say it is the transfer of blood from the donor to the circulatory system of the recipient. Now again class, a recipient will receive blood from the donor if the recipient cannot produce antibodies. Now we say a recipient will receive blood from the donor if the recipient will not produce antibodies against the blood that is being donated to. And what we are going to see, how is that going to come? Now, as you can see, a recipient to a corresponding. Otherwise, if the recipient produces antibodies, clumping together of red blood cells will occur. Now, I want us to fill this table together, then we can see what follows next. Now, number one, we check. We have donor. We also have recipient. Now, in the donor and the donor is what we check. We check antigens. In the donor, we check antigens. This one we check antibodies. This one is in capital. This one is in small. Now, when you come here, you check antigen A, antibody B, no compatibility, they do not correspond, that is tick. Antigen B, antibody B, they correspond, X. Antigen A, B, antibody B, they correspond. No antigen, antibody, tick. Come here again. Antigen A, antibody A, X. Antigen B, antibody A, tick. No antigen B, X. You see? Now, we don't have, no, very good. Antigen B, antigen A, X. Let's come to this one. No, tick. Now, let's come again here. Antigen A, there's no antibody, tick. Antigen B, no antibody. Antigen A and B, no antibody. Antigen, this one does not have any antigen. This one does not have any antibody. Now tick. Let's come here. Antigen A, antibody A. Antigen A, antibody A. This one, X. Come here. Antigen B, antibody B, X. Antigen AB, antibody AB, X. No antigen, antibody present. And class, that is how blood transfusion is taking place. You check the donor's antigen against the recipient's antibodies. If there is correspondence, for example, antigen A, antibody A, there will be no donation. Why? Because they will be clumping together, as in this case. Look at this one. Antibody B, antigen B, antibody B. They correspond. Both of them BB. This one, look at this. Antigen A, antibody A, AA, they correspond. No blood transfusion. Now, what are the conditions necessary for the blood transfusion to occur? Number one, the age limit, it should be 18 to 65. The weight should be 50 and above. And finally, the status of the person donating the blood should be in good health. Very good. Now, let's look at this QN. QN number one. Why is it not advisable to transfuse blood to patients after 1 month of storage. Now, class, we know that red blood cells have a very short lifespan, and by the time 1 month ends and this blood was in the air, was outside, that means these red blood cells will have died. You see, this is because most of the red blood cells, although we can have some others still alive, but most of the red blood cells will have died. State the reason why blood is screened before transfusion is carried out. Blood is screened for pathogens such as HIV, hepatitis, and any other diseases. Number 2, why is blood typing should be done? For example, why should we have to check the blood group of the donor and the blood group of the recipient, so that we can have if they are compatible or not compatible, so that we can get way forward whether blood transfusion can occur or not. Now, class, let's again look at another antigen known as the rhesus antigen. Individuals possessing rhesus antigen are said to be rhesus positive, while those individuals who lack the rhesus antigen are referred to as rhesus negative. Rhesus antigen, rhesus positive, this is RH positive, and those that lack are called rhesus negative. Suppose, class, what will happen if a rhesus positive person donates blood to a rhesus negative individual? This happens. At the first time, the body will respond to this as a foreign, and therefore is going to produce antibodies. But at the first moment, that antibodies will be insignificant and it will not be having any effect. But if the same person is transfused with blood of rhesus positive and the recipient is rhesus negative, now clumping together of red blood cells will occur, because antibodies will be produced against the foreign rhesus antigen. Again, this concept is applied to the pregnant women. We say if a pregnant woman conceives a rhesus positive child, what happens? And we know that the placenta is the site of exchange of materials between the fetal blood and the circulatory system of the mother. Now we know that at the first pregnancy, if a rhesus negative mother conceives a rhesus positive child, during the first pregnancy, the child will survive. But for the subsequent pregnancies, the mother's circulatory system have already recognized that they have already produced antibodies against this foreign body, that is the rhesus antigen, such that the next pregnancy that comes after the first one will now these antibodies will be having a adverse effect once they cross through the placenta into the fetal circulatory system, where they're going to cause mass destruction of the fetal red blood cells. And such conditions, class, is called the erythroblastosis foetalis, or rather the hemolytic disease of the newborn baby. But with advancement in technology, now the fetus can be given, or rather can be transfused with blood while still in the fetus, while still in the womb, or rather in the uterus of the mother. And therefore, class, again, we can, at the 28th week of pregnancy of the mother, we can inject the mother with a rhesus globulin, so that it can prevent that agglutination or clumping together of red blood cells. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best. Have a blessed day in this world as well in the hereafter.